Let's dive into Solana, go in a little bit deeper, I think, in looking at not only projects, but also what they've been doing in the charts, which is pretty big deal. You guys don't want to miss it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's go into a couple of topics today on Solana before we get started. Crypto taxes done in minutes. This is one of the places that you guys can go to start your crypto tax process. It's right around the corner. So if you need to collect data from all your exchanges, your wallets, this is how you can do it. Just go over to Coinledger.io. Use our code because it does help our channel. And one thing that you can do with Coinledger is you can plug this into all your tool sets out there, and you can actually see what your tax liability is going to be before you actually have to go out and purchase the product. So sign up for it, check it out, see what you guys think. Let me know. All right, let's get into a couple of topics today. Of course, the biggest thing is not only the Solana price, but guess what? It's Genesis Day 2024. And this means we've got a 4-year birthday for Solana. So good for them. 254 million blocks, 1,600 validators. That's crazy, 1,600 validators. 276 billion in transactions. A lot of people looking at Solana right now wondering, where does this thing stop? It burst up onto the scene around 200 bucks this weekend, started to fly a little bit above that. Some people say, hey, maybe Solana's target is 1 trillion as a market cap during this run. If it does that, could it actually flip Ethereum? Because there's a lot of people looking at this right now because it has now flipped BNB. And if you think about that and look at the ecosystem, the number of transactions, the ease in which Solana is being used, you have to think about those kind of situations. Now it's about 30% of where ETH is. Could get there, maybe. We'll see. A couple other things you have to look at with Solana is, of course, the total value locked. Now, if you go back here and look at November 2021, that was essentially the last bull run. Look at the amount of TVL that we're hovering around 15 billion. So there's still some room coming in right now at 11 billion in total value locked right now. So there could be, and this is just in the beginning, if we actually see a better performance of Solana, this could go to 25, 30 billion in total value locked. So there's a lot of opportunity here for upside still, I think. Even though there's a lot of people looking at, Solana in general and wondering whether or not this is a good point to sell. Some people have thought about that. But I think now people are maybe looking at maybe a longer position, staking their Solana, maybe in the Phantom wallet, things of that in terms of a strategy. DG News kind of hit on this right here, which I think is another big reason why we're seeing so much action. And that is all the DEXs. Look at this, Radium, Jupiter, Orca, all of which are Solana, all flying above volume in what has been pretty much the king of the titans, which was Uniswap. And I think that's another factor that plays into where Solana's transactions are going, but even more so is the adoption cycle. This is a very key thing as we start to see some pretty significant growth. If you look at just Google Trends in general, look back here. This right here was back in September of 2021. Solana kind of made its way up to 245, well talked about in the crypto spaces, but now we've actually surpassed that in terms of Google Trends. Has Solana made it now to mainstream? I think most people would probably say yes. Is it being looked at now as an alternative, a true alternative to Ethereum? I think also people would agree with that. So there's a lot, I think, going in the right direction with where Solana is going. Other things that you got to think about here is just the active wallets. I mean, look at the explosion here on wallets. This is an unbelievable explosion. There's two things that could be happening here because it's still, I think, questionable as to whether or not we've seen retail enter the market, whether or not we've seen a true beginning of a bull run, or is this maybe that early start of a bull run before we see some major retracement. And it's very possible that Solana could make a major retracement. But I think when you look at the number of wallets, the ease of use, the DEXs that are employed now, along with the number of projects, it starts to get a little bit harder for Solana, I think, to go back and do much retracement. Unless, of course, we get some sort of gray swan or big issue out there in the markets. All right, so as you remember last week, DENCON occurred, lower fees. Base was one of the benefiters from that, people that would benefit most. But we didn't really see a lot of action. And I think that was the surprise. It was a bit of a surprise. And remember that with Base, you still have the bridge situation. I think that's the other factor that plays into this as well, which is why what we've seen on Phantom and, of course, Solana being so successful. This is a clip with CTO Larson talking about Solana versus Base. Listen in.
I never liked about layer 2. It always seemed a little too complicated. I know from the telecom that the things that seem like it's not such a big deal, you just go into settings and you enter some settings or something like that. No, people are not going to do it. That kills the entire business case. That's worth like trillions of dollars if you can avoid people have to type something in settings, like bridging from, go from layer 1 assets into layer 2, and which one is it, Arbitrum or Optimism, or which one is it, all that stuff. It always felt like one hurdle too many. Yeah, and I think one reason that BNB in the previous cycle and Binance Smart Chain got so much traction, of course, it was the cost and it was cheap and fast to use, but it was also the convenience. And you could just go in there and select withdraw, and you just selected Binance Smart Chain and it comes out. Do you think that Base will kind of become this?
Yeah, I mean, Base is the L2 by Coinbase, and on Twitter, the dev that is like the main dev for Base at Coinbase, he confirmed that all of the users that use Coinbase, under the hood, they already have Base addresses. They have all the infra to instantly onboard all their users into Base. So that's something that we probably will see later this year. Coinbase has, 500 million or so KYC users.
The only thing I'm concerned with Base is, could they miss it? Could they miss this bull run? I'm surprised that this hasn't rolled out almost immediately to be able to enable, kind of that slick customer service and experience that many people are trying to achieve, especially in crypto, because as you look at adoption, that's going to be one of the critical factors, especially on new people coming to crypto. If they try something out and it's kind of clunky, they're just not going to come. I want to clip over to another clip. This is actually Steve Jobs talking about customer experience. Listen in.
It's sad and clear that on several accounts you've discussed, you don't know what you're talking about.
I'm sure that you can make some demos, maybe a small commercial app. The hardest thing is, how does that fit in to a cohesive, larger vision? One of the things I've always found is you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it.
Yeah, I mean, Steve was always so aware of how not only the consumer methodology works, but also what the triggers were. And what would draw in a user, what became now, if you think about it just with Mac users in general, back in the era of Jobs, I mean, that's what created, I think, the Mac ecosystem that was so sticky. And I think that's what Solana has been able to do. They're creating an ecosystem that is super sticky. People that once you're in it, it's very difficult to start to move out of it because the ease of use, customer experience is there. All of it is really kind of clicking at this point. So kudos to them. Now, another thing that's happening is, this is kind of on to new news here, and that is Starbucks announced the death of its NFT rewards venture. This was on Polygon. Now, one of the things that I look at, and we've done a couple of videos on this pretty extensively, about what the future of NFTs, and especially in brand IP, and what that might look like for restaurants. There's a few solutions within the Solana ecosystem that could be solving this. If you look at a couple of things, this was kind of their journey of what they're doing and what they were trying to do with Odyssey. And I think that's the whole point, is that this was so simplistic and not necessarily elegant. It also created what I think was so many barriers to entry, which is definitely not the case. And this is a point that we kind of talked about when we did the first video on Starbucks, is that this had a lot of problems, most likely may not make it. So it could be dead on arrival. Well, a year later, it has exited. Not a bad thing, I think, for Web3, because I think some people will look at this and they'll learn from it. I think this is going to create some opportunities in the marketplace. A couple of those opportunities you have to consider is one that we're watching very closely. Full disclosure, I'm an advisor on this project, and that is Devour. We talked a little bit about this, and remember, Devour did an announcement where you could get their token in the Solana ecosystem. Now, just to give you a framework of Devour, Devour is, think of it as the Web3 alternative to a food ordering app. The ability to earn tokens, then use those tokens for buying food. So it's a very simple solution. It's one that the industry is well versed in terms of the restaurant industry, and the fact that they need those kind of solutions. And the other thing that is very critical here is that customer experience that creates that brand loyalty. Back to my point earlier with Apple, it ties in exactly. And when Devour announced this is what happened to that chart. They were kind of pegging along right here, Solana announcement. Now you have an ecosystem that starts to blow up. Here's an opportunity, and this could be one that Devour takes. This was their CEO doing a quick review of some of the updates that they were doing over, I think it's in their Telegram group. But listen in.
Wow, what a freaking week. It literally, there has been no time to breathe on the events that have happened over the past 4 days. DPAY and Devour and DPAY took off like fire, and we are truly only freaking just getting started. But if you have DPAY holdings in a DeFi wallet, that moving them to Solana, the fees will be their pennies. But it is going to take us just a little bit to get it where in Devour Go, you're able to do a withdrawal and choose a Solana wallet rather than an Ethereum wallet, and have that be a native payment so that you could connect Soulflare or a Phantom to it to pay directly out of that, just like you can a MetaMask wallet or Coinbase wallet.
So this is going to be a pretty interesting thing with Devour. As they start to onboard more restaurants, this could open up literally food through payment via blockchain, via Solana, essentially. Now, there's been one big holdback, though, in this industry, one that I think is maybe the floodgate about to open, and that is with a company called Olo. Now, Olo, if you know much about food ordering systems and the technology infrastructure that it rides, basically Olo is a gateway that ties into all e-commerce for restaurants around the world, primarily here in the US. They're a publicly traded company, so you can go out and learn a little bit more about it. Devour needed a connection via Olo. It's kind of the hooks that you need to be able to tie into pretty much any restaurant chain that's out there. Here was a clip of Shelly talking a little bit further about this opening up. Listen in.
It is everything that matters anything to this company, to this community. We needed the Olo integration, and we accomplished that. We wore them down. I will say, I'm just going to call it out. The CIO of Fat Brands reached out directly and said, make this happen, to the CEO, and it did. What we do know is that there were approximately 1,700 integration requests in their queue, but we have leapfrogged all of those. I'm having conversations. 7-Eleven is ready to come in. Taco Bell, Burger King, Dave's Hot Chicken, Big Chicken, of course, Jeff and Wow Bao, Whataburger, Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, and Red Bull. Taco Bell was also fun because I got to show them the actual prototype. We had included them in the prototype for Call of Duty. DPAY and DPAY price over the past week is fun, but I'm telling you, the Olo integration is something that you all should be doing a dance at home about, because it's a game changer for us. There is no doubt that this is about to catch fire.
So I've mentioned this before on this show, is that if they got that integration, this would be one of the projects that starts to really move. And it may become the leader when it comes to food ordering for a Web3 application, and being able to integrate into gaming where you can earn some DPAY. That essentially is going to buy your food. So a lot happening. Now, she mentioned Fat Brands. Fat Brands is one of the top franchising groups out there that has a variety of restaurant brands. She mentioned also many others that are coming in. And I think as they start to get, meaning Devour, as they start to get the coil up on the number of restaurant brands, this will move quickly, because all that it takes is one or two chains to say yes, which many have already done. Red Robin was announced, etc. And now you've got Fat Brands coming on board. This is probably going to go like wildfire, because within the restaurant community, once that one chain comes in, everybody knows they have to get competitive. They automatically turn it on, and off you go to the races. So a lot definitely going in the right direction. This was them talking a little bit more about Wow Bao. Now, we've done a couple of clips. The Wow Bao team has been on some of our other podcasts here. Wow Bao is a restaurant brand that does virtual concepts all over the U.S. And their CEO, good friend of mine, And he said some interesting things, but listen in.
CEO of Wow Bao, and he said, "Where's the Olo integration?" And I said, "I'm not leaving here without it." And he said, "Okay." He has, and I cannot divulge anything further than what I'm just getting ready to say. He has a major gaming play that's coming, and he shared with me what they've got going on. And he said, "Lock that in this week, and you are in the press release for what we are doing." And what I can tell you is this is mind blowing, kind of who they're working with and what's happening there. This will not take long, and this will be moving very fast, at least for the announcement to get out.
All right, so a couple of things there is that, with Jeff's Wow Bao and what their attempt is here is to start to create these rewards within, whether it's some sort of gaming achievement. Those kind of things, of course, create brand affinity and loyalty, which is one of the biggest things in that industry that is so important. And if you think about what Starbucks has done, there's a wide open opportunity here for someone like McDonald's or even Dunkin' brands to go in and do something that could maybe even start to integrate a lot of those NFTs that were in the Odyssey platform. So there's some very interesting things happening in the space right now. And food is just one of the areas that you have to keep an eye on with Solana. The other one is the mobile integration. As you guys know, we've talked about this many times, Solana Mobile, the Saga. We're here on the top of the leaderboard here today. But the point is that with these rewards going into either chapter, the first Saga, the original, or the chapter 2, the option here now is that if you go back and look at what Devour is doing here with their GoFriends page, is there's the Genesis token right here. So this is where it starts to create these opportunities with all these different projects to be able to do airdrops, loyalty programs, all sorts of brand IP into what is now, I think, the Web3 phone that will start to pay you to own it. So a lot of very cool things. This is just to show you what's happening within Saga right now. This is what a phone would essentially get if you were kind of popped in there. You're going to get some Bonk, ACS, Saga Monkeys. There's the win, some Chonky. This is a current value. And the likelihood is you're going to continue to see more and more of this coming in, especially as brands start to figure out this, because that's going to create some very good potential connections. Now, another thing that is starting to occur is within the browser side of things. If you look at Brave and also compare to what's happened with Apple, Brave, of course, has started to really accelerate. So why did Apple and Google make it so hard to switch from default browsers? It was a powerful way to block competitors. Now, what happened to Brave installs on the iPhone in the EU when Apple rolled out the new default browser choice? So this is another thing. Remember, Brave wallet is connected into blockchain connectivity as well, Solana being one of them. So this also opens up very interesting adoption cycles that make it easy for people to understand. Apple continues to make mistakes. I mean, this is, of course, one of their biggest issues right now, another almost $500 million settling of a lawsuit alleging, Tim Cook saying that, hey, the falling demand for iPhones in China was not revealed to investors. That was another problem. They took a $500 million hit and off they went. If you look at the cycle of, I'm going to go back to Apple's chart here, all the way back into March of 2009. Now, the area I've highlighted here, this is iPhone season. And what I mean by that is Steve Jobs, he goes out in 2007, he launches the iPhone. I think a lot of people were still skeptical as to whether a touchscreen phone would actually work. And, in 2008, we started to see a little of adoption, and then boom, in 2009, it hit. And I think that's kind of what's happening. But if you look at 2009 and then just start to stretch that out, look at what happened to Apple. This was just pure, simple mechanics of just straight up, all right? So you can get the point here is when you create that amazing infrastructure and then you build that amazing experience and you start to have all these additional tool sets, then that's what you start to see. This, of course, is a clip right here of Michael Saylor talking about Apple.
Can you imagine someone sitting around saying, oh, I get mobile device technology, and you're trying to time the market in Apple stock in 2011? Like you're buying and selling Apple stock in 2011? You want to shake them like, are you out of your mind? I'm trading Facebook stock back and forth between $8 a share and $4 a share and $12 a share. And you just want to do this. Like, Like, do you not understand that one day every single person on the planet is going to have one of these things in their pocket, and it's going to go up by a factor of 100? And you're trying to like trade Apple stock between $1.25 and $1.17 and bragging about how you bought it at $1.25 and sold it at $2.11. And have you figured out the consequences of being short the share if it goes up by $100? Like the amount that, like, are you out of your mind? I spent 30 years in the business and I obsess over this every single freaking minute of the day. And I wrote a book on it, right? I made $500 million investing in these things, right? And I started, and I put a small amount of capital in. And let me tell you one thing, John, I can't time the market. I have no freaking clue.
Yeah, what Saylor is talking about there is obviously Bitcoin, but he's also talking about the revolution of technology. And that was a good example of whether you think about Meta or you look at Microsoft or you look at Apple. You could take any of these technologies that have absolutely destroyed any kind of opportunity. Now, the next phase is going to probably be the two titans right now, and that's going to be AI and blockchain. All right, so as you tie into that, you have to think about what's happening with NVIDIA. NVIDIA, of course, this is coming out this week. Future of rendering. This, of course, is Jules Urbach, who's the CEO of Otoy, which is Render. All right, this is going to change the dynamic of how things are rendered in a decentralized function. Guess what? Render rides on Solana. What does that mean? Does this mean that we are in the early stages of all of this growth? Yes, that's what it means. If you look at much of what's happened in all those early tech companies, yes, there were ups and yes, there were downs. But in the long run, if you're looking at holding that way, then maybe you've got in on the beginning of something that could revolutionize technology in the future. All right, so another thing that is very relevant here is other sectors of retail. One of them, of course, is rideshare. You look at rideshare, there's been a handful of projects out there. Teleport is one we like. They're still very micro, very small. But now you have things happening in these municipalities, like Minneapolis, that are saying, okay, we're going to do these kind of situations in terms of causing effect on a lot of these rideshare companies, and they have to exit because it's no longer profitable. So because of the way it's structured. And this could change for a decentralized nature in a very, very big way. In fact, I want to go to a clip talking about how Lyft is now leaving Minneapolis. Listen in.
Now that they've been slapped down, Lyft says, oh, we are leaving Minneapolis. We are leaving. Excellent news, right? Because what happens is that other companies filled the void. We saw this in Austin, and drivers were making more. And riders had better choices because there is healthy competition. You don't have much healthy competition when a duopoly, Uber and Lyft, muscles everyone out of the way. Drivers, do not stress. There are several companies waiting, right? They're like queuing up to land in Minneapolis. If they want to leave, I say to you, David Risher, don't wait till May the 1st. Pull out, get out. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the next big national and international protest is on April the 1st.
All right, ride-sharing, huge companies that are in this. It's also a huge marketplace for not only guests, but also acquisition and the potential to maybe create a unique experience. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this, of course, is Teleport talking about this. This is Paul Baum, their CEO. We're leaving Minneapolis. He says, hey, it's going to get interesting here. Now, one of the things he notes here in his tweet, the ordinance rates are less than what we expect Teleport Trip to pay based on these free market dynamics. So essentially, this hurts Uber and Lyft, but it doesn't really even affect a blockchain, decentralized model for ride sharing. Now, granted, there's a lot of things that have to be done from a technological standpoint, rider safety, driver safety, all those kind of things that do have to take place. The point is the tide's turned? Are we starting to see maybe a cycle where a decentralized product or a project gets its chance to go into some of these markets? These, again, are major markets, much like food. So I just look at the application, the utility, starting to paint out in all of these projects, all residing on Solana. So if you guys think that, let me know. Drop some comments down below. Of course, if you're not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in now. It's very easy and it's free. Of course, you got to follow me out there on X. Please do so. It's just @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.